Francis Ford Coppola, his quote that one day, the next Hollywood masterpiece would be made by a 10-year-old girl with her dad's video camera, right? And I think we all know that she's a video blogger, right? And behind her are going to be 1,000 more, and then 1,000,000 more just like her. And they will change the world. So Hollywood, fuck them. They can't say anymore, you can, you can't. We get to say, how about all of us can do it? Why not? Why does it have to be just this person and not that person? Why not all of us? That's what's cool about video on a blog.
So, when I was in 7th grade, the iPhone came out, and this was a really big deal. I remember watching the demo by Steve Jobs in a math class that day. Somehow the teacher had gotten a recording of it online, and he played it back for us instead of teaching us math. That's how big a deal it was. And I thought it was a particularly big deal because I was a vlogger at the time.
Hello there, this is Sharkjaw. I'm gonna start a vlog. Vlog, video log. It's hard to say. Vlog. And, I'm gonna do, like, questions, comments, stuff like that. And, so yeah.
Why my parents thought it was a good idea to give an 11-year-old a laptop with a camera on it is just absolutely beyond me. But aside from that, I mean, I was very fortunate to have access to this tool because I got to watch all these people on the internet, people from all over the world, who I would never have otherwise been exposed to if I were just hanging out in my Los Angeles suburb, right?
No one in the world can do what I do.
When I was 11 years old, I was watching tons of YouTube videos and Flash animations and just lots of internet video. And as you do when you're a kid, you pick up a lot of ideas about the world through the media you consume. And I've been sort of looking back and trying to examine, like, what did I learn from that period of time? The iPhone was just one stepping stone towards a world where everyone had a camera, everyone had a voice, right? And this idea was, like, exciting. It was invigorating, I thought, at age 11, this is a future that I want to work towards, a world where media is democratized. In many ways, the vision that we had back then has been realized, right? Like, everyone does have a camera, everyone does have a voice, the potential to be seen or heard by millions of people online. That's reality. But, like, what of it, I thought it was going to be sunshine and rainbows. I thought it was going to be a utopia, But that's not what we have. What we have is Donald Trump and the post-truth problem. We have media companies consolidating and lobbying against net neutrality. Facebook and the whole digital advertising industry has become an international propaganda vector. We all have access to tools for creative expression, and so do Nazis. So it's like, that's scary. That's scary, and it's not what I expected. Where did we get this idea that technology was going to bring about social justice? Who were the first vloggers? Like, who were the people who I was watching back in 2007? I need to understand, how I got here. Like, what happened along the way? So what I did was I went back and I looked into the history of the vlog, and I learned some really interesting things. So one of the things I discovered is that there was this one community of video bloggers that was founded in 2004 by two roommates, Peter Van Dyke and Jay Dedman. So I went back and I read a lot of these posts, and I looked into the people who wrote those posts. And what I found is that a lot of those people were involved in public access TV. So public access, what is public access? You might know it from, like, Wayne's World, right? A public access TV station is one where any tax-paying citizen can show up, get some training on professional video tools, and then broadcast themselves on real live TV. Public access is an idea that came out of the 70s, right? This is a time when you've got lots of social upheaval, you've got civil rights and anti-war and environmentalist and feminist movements happening, lots and lots of stuff going on. And you've got lots of Americans saying, yo, what they show on TV does not represent our views. If only we could express our views, the world would be a better place, right? Because we'd be able to convince people of our belief systems and change the world, right? We talk a lot in media discourse about the idea of representation and how important it is. That the power to depict reality is kind of the power to create reality. So the proposed solution was to just give people access to TV, and that is public access.
I mean, this is the idea of the medium being the message and so on. Attitudes about what is the nature of love and life and how one behaves and the kinds of meanings and values that one associates with being an American and so forth. All of these are implicit in most all films made. But if you have in cassette and cable distribution literally hundreds and thousands of different expressions from hundreds and thousands of different people, artists, multiplicity of voices about what constitutes reality, you're going to find an enormous change in the political and economic structure of the entire country.
Well, the thing is that most of the really interesting oddballs in this world have been filtered out of most media. So you don't really get the really interesting things.
So that clip was taken from a conversation that one of my favorite media theorists, Gene Youngblood, had with George Lucas. They're talking about the state of media and the film industry. And Gene Youngblood is proposing this radical vision, right? That if everyone has access to share their messages, that you will change the world at its root. This is the ideology of public access, and it comes from the specific time and place. Many of the central figures in the early history of video blogging shared this vision. They were people who had training with professional video making tools who wanted to share those with the world. They were fighting a cultural battle, and they saw the internet as this new front. So the vlog practice, the vlog genre or movement, or whatever you want to call it, it inherits these values of anti-commercialism, of freedom of expression, the importance of fair use and the First Amendment. Now, if you think about the period from which vlogging emerged, right, it's the Bush years, right? It's my childhood. It's post 9/11 Muslim hysteria. It's Rush Limbaugh and Bill O'Reilly and people, these conservative commentators through Fox News and other outlets who dominated American political discourse. It's a world where corporate media is flourishing.
It has been difficult for the liberal talk radio people to get any traction in the USA, and around the country, right-wing yackers continue to dominate.
The #1 show that dominates cable news. The O'Reilly Factor.
And the vloggers look at that and they basically say, that's clickbait. That's bad for society. That's it's a company, a commercial news company, drumming up fear for the sake of advertising dollars, right? A lot of them even looked at Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart as not super good because they were still corporate media. They were still for-profit television.
It's people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
So they said, let's do anti-commercial media on the internet. By 2004, 2005, around that time, the conditions are finally there for them to start doing that on a larger scale than they ever had. By that time, most computers came preloaded with Windows Movie Maker or iMovie, some sort of video editing software, and broadband internet in 2005 finally overtook dial-up in the US internet market. So the time is perfect between 2004 and 2005 to make the internet a new front in the sort of cultural battle of media representation. In 2005, the very first internet video convention was held, called VloggerCon, out in New York at NYU's interactive telecommunications program. And there were panels and discussions about all these things, right? About anti-commercialism, about the tools and techniques that you would use to make video online. There were conversations about the future of media and what it would look like.
So the cinema of the 21st century doesn't look like movies and theaters. What it looks like is platforms where lots of people can come in and participate using video. In other words, as a filmmaker, you don't just make one linear 90-minute story. Rather, you create a space that can live and explore the topics you're interested in over a period of time.
Like what he just described is a YouTube channel, right? This is contemporary storytelling through social media profiles. What he's calling the future of cinema is just our present. I mean, it's hard to overstate the importance of this group in the history of online video. The founders of Blip TV and Vimeo were both involved. I'm fairly certain that Zay Frank read those posts. The folks who worked on Rocket Boom. I mean, so many of the early kind of greats of internet video came from that space. So it's no wonder why these politics of freedom of expression and anti-commercialism, right, that these start to permeate the culture of vlogging early on.
If you could basically get paid to do what you're talking about, would you want that?
This is something that I'm kind of throwing out to you guys because it's it's a weird thing for me to feel like someone's going to pay me to make videos of my friends. Like, who is going to pay me to do that? Do I want someone to pay me to do that?
And over time, that culture has changed drastically. Anti-commercialism is really not part of the conversation anymore. I mean, vlogging is an industry. It's a career. It's the #1 career desired by American teenagers. Like, think about that. Like, more than athlete or astronaut, right? Like, YouTuber. That's the career that kids want nowadays.
You know, I want to point out that part of what makes this community interesting and part of what makes these videos so powerful is that they're very personal and they're coming from the artist. And I think if you start selling out editorial integrity in order to make short-term cash, it will be long-term negative.
You know, I think it's important that we sort of remind ourselves of every once in a while that vlogging isn't just a job, right? It's a tool you can use for yourself, for your family, for your city, right? Like, you can make vlogs for reasons other than building an audience on YouTube. That's basically what I grew up believing in, and knowing that has that very specific history is interesting and cool to me. I kind of get to think about this in a more informed way now.
There is always a challenge of craft. Those who decide not to screw around, but to develop their craftsmanship as how they approach these things, they bake ideas and social norms into the genre that are very, very hard, even for commercial media, to pull out.
You know, this is still such a beautiful idea to me. You know, the idea that every person should have a voice, that everyone should, you know, be able to share their view of the world. And I'm very glad that people who believe in equality of race and gender and sexuality and geography, that we now have the opportunity to have that perspective shared. But so do Nazis, right? Like that's the problem. When you give everyone cameras, you're giving Nazis cameras. So this is a major problem, right? Another problem is that the ability to create a message is not the same thing as the ability to share a message, right? Like, we can share messages, but we don't necessarily have access to an audience. The distribution of media messages is controlled by websites like Facebook and Google and YouTube, right? They use curation algorithms that cater to certain people's interests, and those algorithms are designed to keep people watching advertisements, right? It's not to share messages equally, to have a positive media space. It's to serve the bottom line of these companies. Media has been democratized and commercialized at the same time. This is the problem. I think the first step towards proposing solutions for how to confront the challenges of our time is to look at our history, really examine ourselves and our relationship with media. How do we use it, right? What kind of messages are we receiving, and how do we interact with those messages? For me, that means studying YouTube, studying the media that informed who I am today, you know? I study YouTube because it's my history, and it's our history. It's the history of growing up, thinking technology was gonna bring about utopia, and realizing, nope, that's not how that works. Yeah.
It's just really, I personally have never experienced anything like this. I mean, and I got to always keep telling it to myself, like, this is a really special time, you know, be aware, be aware, be aware. Because in 10 years, I'll be have some stupid job and I'll hate my life and I'll remember this day, you know.
So yeah, that's what I have to say. My name's Anthony D'Angelo. My Twitter is @coolwebfriend. My website is heythats.cool. If you have any questions, I will be answering comments below. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
You know, the cool thing about video blogging, it can be as punk rock as we want it to be, right? I'm here in my house with my computer and my whiteboard and whatever, and I'm making stuff up. And I'm putting it on the internet. And you can't do shit about that.